All right, guys, we're going to be doing some review today, 9-1 to 9-5, and then some of Chapter 8. It's the last day of March. We're going to be solving 3 problems using all 4 methods. The first method is graphing, factoring from Chapter 8, completing the square, and then quadratic formula. Here's our first example. X squared plus 6x minus 16. So I'm going to jump into method 2, factoring, since that's probably not the freshest in our mind. So this is where we're going to take negative 16 and come up with factors like, 1 and negative 16, or if you use the cross, negative 16 on top and 6 on the bottom. How can we multiply to get 16 and 6? So it's 2 and 8. We need a negative though and a positive down here. So that means our bigger number is going to be positive and our smaller number is going to be negative. So we end up with x minus 2 and x plus 8 as our factors. Since it's set equal to 0, we're going to break them up, case 1, case 2. So I have x minus 2 equals 0, and x plus 8, case 2, equals 0. Get the variable alone on both sides. And I'm left with x is equal to 2, or x is equal to negative 8. So my answer for this problem is 2 and negative 8. Okay? So method 2 is done. So maybe now I jump to the first one, method 1, graphing. X squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. This one I need an x and a y, right? I can still use things that I've learned, like the axis of symmetry, where x is equal to negative b over 2a. So negative 6 over 2 times 1. So negative 3. And then I can substitute that in. So when x is negative 3, I have negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 minus 16. So negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, plus a negative 18 minus 16. So this is negative 9 minus 16, negative 25. Okay. And then remember, if it's in standard form, this is the y-axis, so there's nothing on the x. We'll be at negative 16 on the y. So if I graph this, heavy on the negatives, negative 5s, counting by. I'll just count by ones. 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. When x is 0, y is negative 16. Our axis of symmetry is negative 3 and negative 25. So it's at negative 16, but over 3. Be about here. Right? And so our numbers, 4, 5, 6, Should be the same answers here, right? So we should want to cross. Going through our points. -2, +2, -8. Okay. Method 3. Completing the square. We've got x squared, 6x minus 16 equals 0. This is where we want to focus on the first two terms. So we're going to break it up, x squared plus 6x, and move the -16 to the other side so it becomes positive. And then we're going to take b, the middle, right, and cut it in half so we get 3. And then we take that number and we square it to get 9. So x plus 3 becomes our parentheses, and 9 is what we put in. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we end up with x plus 3 equals 25. When we simplify, x plus 3 squared equals 25. Both of those can be rooted. We get x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 5. And then we solve our case 1 and case 2. X plus 3 equals positive 5. X plus 3 equals -5. We get x equals 2. And x equals -8. Okay. And then lastly, method 4, the quadratic formula. Same problem. X squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. Remember that formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So when we sub in, we're not going to have enough room, I don't think. We get -6 plus or minus 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times -16 all over 2 times 1. -6 plus or minus 36 minus, use a calculator, I think that's positive 64 divided by 2. -6 plus or minus the square root of 100 divided by 2, which is equal to -6 plus or minus 10 over 2. To be continued. So we have x is equal to -6 plus or minus 10 divided by 2 is where we were at. So we're going to take this and do our case 1, case 2. So -6 plus 10 divided by 2, -6 minus 10 divided by 2. 4 over 2 equals 2. -16 over 2 equals -8. So x is equal to the derivative of 2 and -8. Okay, ready to try another one? New problem. 2x squared minus 2x plus 7 equals 5. Okay, that's our second example. I'm going to start with our factoring. So I think that's method 2. First thing we need to do is, can't have things on both sides, so we're going to bring it over. We want it equal to 1, or equal to 0. So I'm going to move the 5. 2x squared minus 2x plus 2 equals 0. If I try to factor out what's common, x squared minus x plus 1 can't factor that. Can't factor that down, right? Because there's no way to get a negative 1 and then a positive 1. So no solution, which means we can't factor. So we're gonna check other methods. Okay, so if you're not sure, jump to another one. Okay, let's graph. Method 1. Same problem, 2x squared minus 2x plus 7 equals 5. Minus 5 minus 5. 2x squared plus 2x plus 2 equals 0. If I take x equals negative b over 2a, that's going to give me negative, negative 2 over 2 times 2. And I get a positive 2 on top and 4 on the bottom, so 1/2. So x is 1/2. And let's see, right here we have our 0 and 2. So if I substitute this in, 2 times 1/2 squared minus 2 times 1/2 plus 2. I get 1/2. So this would be 1/4, and then I can reduce them. Yeah, 1/2 minus 1 equals, or plus 2. So 1/2 plus 1. So y is equal to 1 and 1/2. So then I'll graph it. So 1/2 and 1.5 is here, and 0, 2 is here. So to match that, that would be on this side here. And remember, the answers are where it crosses on the x, which it doesn't. So this is also no solution. Method 3. Two x squared minus 2x plus 7 equals 5. This time we're doing squares, right? So we want to focus on the first two. So we're going to move the 7 So we have 2x squared minus 2x equals negative 2. And we can't have anything on our front term, so we're going to divide it by 2, which gives us x squared minus x is equal to negative 1. And if we take our middle, which is negative 1, and divide it by 2, we get negative 1/2. And if we square that, we get 1/4. So 1/4 is what goes in the middle, and 1/2 is what goes in our parentheses. Don't forget to use that twin rule. So we're left with negative 3/4 on the right. And if we were to simplify, we have x minus 1/2 squared is equal to negative 3/4, which there's a negative and it can't be rooted, right? If there's a negative on the right, then we can stop. It's no solution. Okay. Last one. Method 4. Quadratic. 2x squared minus 2x plus 2 equals 0. I'm just going to jump here, right? We know that the 7 and the 5 is how I got the 2. Okay. Save myself some space. So we're going to use that formula. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2 Did I do that right last time? Yeah, 2a. Okay. Substitute in. I'm going to come over here. So I've got negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2, and then 2 times 2 all over 2 times 2. And when we simplify, x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 16 divided by 2. When I simplify that, x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 over 2. And from here, we get no solution because we have a negative inside the parenthesis. Okay, so we can stop. No solution. All right, the next one is going to be a you try. Example 3. Solve it all 4 ways. Go ahead and pause it. Take the time to do it. I did method 2 first. So I moved the 24 over so I could get it equal to 0. Then because we had a term, a coefficient on the first term, I divided everything by negative 2. Once I did that, I was left with x squared minus 18x plus 17. Negative 2, trying to find the terms that would go in, whether you do the diamond or the factors. 17 is prime, so only 1 and 17 can go in. So those become your 2 numbers that go in with the x's. Keep in mind that one was negative and then one was positive above, so they're both going to be negative to get that positive product. And then you solve with the cases, case 1, case 2. 1 and 17 was what I got. When I graph it, I'll start it the same way. Negative 2x squared plus 36x. And then I'm going to bring the 24 over, so I'm going to get minus 34 equals 0. From here, I need to solve, find some x and y's. If I take negative b over 2a, that gives me negative 36 over 2 times negative 2. Negative 36 over negative 4 equals 9. When I substitute that in, negative 2 times 9 squared plus 36 times 9 minus 34. I get negative 2 times 81. 36 times 9, use a calculator. 324 minus 34. Negative 2 times 81 is negative 162 plus 290. And when we combine those, we get 128. For y, we have negative 34, so when x is 0, y is negative 34. So I can graph those. Got some big numbers, so count by maybe 30. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. 5, 10, 15. Negative 30, 60, 90. So 9 and 128 is up here. And 0 and negative 34 is around here. Since this was over 9, that means our next one would be over 9, so almost a 20. Like 9 and 9 is 18, right? So almost a 20. And at the same location. Sorry, in the same location over here. We know from our first one we got 1 and 17, which looks about right. This is going to come up through here. Curve around. And so x is 1 and 17. Okay. Then we have solving for squares. So we have to divide by 2, we want to move the third term over to the right so that we only have the first 2. We cut them in half first, then double it, solve for case 1 and case 2, and we find that we get 1 and 17. And then lastly, the quadratic, negative 2x squared plus 36x minus 10 equals 24. We want to make sure that we're set up equal to 0, so we're going to move over. We get 2x squared minus 36x minus 34 equals 0. We sub in negative 36 plus or minus the square root of 36 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 34 all over 2 times negative 2. And when we simplify, negative 36 and the square root using a calculator, 1,296 minus, I think it's 272 divided by 4. X equals negative 36 and 1024, all divided by 4. Negative 36 plus or minus 32 divided by 4. So then we case 1, case 2. Negative 36 plus 32 divided by 4 is negative 4 over 4, which is 1. Negative 36 minus 32 over 4 is negative 68 divided by 4. Which is, oh, sorry, these were negative. 17. I don't have room. 17. So we end up with x is equal to 1 and 17.